Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Merc Serene, and you are watching our Enigmatica 6 Expert playthrough. I'm going to start it off with a question to you. Do you happen to know how to fix something? So every time I close my world and then I come back in, my refined storage system does not correctly connect to my drawer controller, which these things are on. Look, I should have 4,922 emeralds in my network. That should be like one of the top items in here, and we don't see them. The solution is I can break either the connection on a cable, or I can just break the whole refined storage controller itself and then replace it. And when I replace it, we'll go back up and take a look. Boom. There's all these things in here that weren't here before, right? The honey block was the top thing, but now we see, look, we've got a ton of ender pearls and dirt and all these other things. And there's going to be things down here too that we're also missing. So, if you know how to fix it, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. I hate having to break that every time I restart my world. In this episode, we're going to begin with finishing off our lithium processing building, and I wanted to show you something real quick. It's just slightly interesting, right? So back behind me, the computer in our biodiesel plant, we are now at 2.67% full of biodiesel, which is not very much. But it is actually 335 buckets worth, which is actually quite a lot. It's just not a lot compared to how much the tank can hold. Something I wanted to show is, oh look, red mushrooms are now at 0. This was expected. We actually eat the mushrooms, and when I say we eat them, I mean that the system eats them faster than we produce them. There are 6 left in here, and if this harvests a red mushroom right now, which it just did, that is so funny. It's actually going to make its way down into here. We should see it if it's gonna go. I don't know, but you know, we may have missed it when we were in the menu. But anyways, there's one coming now. This will run out, and eventually, when it does run out, it will, of course, take in brown mushrooms, and we are totally full on those brown mushrooms. And then the red mushrooms will, you know, go all the way back up, and they'll cap out, and then we'll run out of brown mushrooms, and it'll go back and forth, no problem. Interestingly enough, at 2%, 2.5%, we can actually finally see the liquid in our tank, but it's just so little that it's like it's almost nothing in that tank. There we are, and our vegetable oil at 250 buckets worth, we still can't even see it. So you need a lot inside these tanks in order to actually see them. Heading outside and around the corner, we will find our lithium processing plant. It's not quite finished. We have some of the things coming in. Here's our water system being pumped in. Things are actually up and running. We're not finished though yet, but let's take a look and see what we have. The water pumps in from below the floor, and we can see this the small fluid tank. It's mostly full, right? Mostly full. That's fine. If we find that we are actually using water faster than we can consume it, well, then we'll have to increase our pump system out there. Not a big deal. It comes in. We have a refinery controller that is receiving heat from below. This just takes water into brine and then steam. So the brine makes its way into this dynamic tank, and it moves out the back. We have the dense steam going back there. So we have a dense steam tank too. Now look, this is not even halfway full. Interestingly enough, because the steam's like a gas, we can sort of see it. It's like filling the container, which is pretty cool. Coming back over, the brine comes out into this tank, and then it makes liquid lithium. So let's take a look at this again, right? So 100 millibuckets of water turns into only 10 millibuckets of brine, which is not very much. Those 10 come over here, and then we process 10 at a time here, but that only makes 1 millibucket of liquid lithium. So this liquid lithium is actually pretty slow to build up. This also makes dense steam, which goes in the back. We're going to put a voiding system here, so when this fills up, we can just void the extra over there. I don't think we need dense steam for anything. Our liquid lithium tank, totally empty as well, because that pumps into the Pneumatic processing plant. Here we are. You can see we already have some liquid or some lithium dust created. This just takes a pressure system, which we have below. Now, required temperature, -273 all the way up to +180. This was something we had looked at. It turns out when this is in operation, which we actually just slightly saw there, When this is working, it is building temperature up. So that's going to have to be something we monitor. If we exceed the 180 because we've processed too many items, we're going to have to cool it down. And that isn't something that we've had to do with yet, but we will soon. I think we're going to leave it like this. I don't think we're going to continue like expanding that system today because we have some other plans. However, let's just take a look. This will be a drawer. We're going to have 2 more drawers on top. We'll turn our lithium dust here into the induction smelter to turn it into the reinforced alloys from Mekanism right here. So we're also going to need to get a power system that can power this too. Are we going to have a power system in the basement? I don't know. This is our basement. It's not fancy, but this is where we're generating our power, and this is how we're generating our heat. And again, this is not automated at the moment. It's just a whole bunch of charcoal in here to power the heater. My envisioning nature, I did not want to go up on the roof. My envisioned spot for this building is that you will come in and there will probably be a screen right here from a computer that's hooked up to everything, and we'll get a display just like we have in here to show us some things. And this display is not finished yet either. So let's talk a little bit about what I sort of have in mind. I originally wanted to, of course, use refined storage for all of our automation needs, but we had some problems there, right? We didn't have exactly the amount of power, and I might have the ability to make a much better power system that could handle it. But as of right now, we don't have that, and I'd really like to have the automation going sooner than later. And I don't want to wait for refined storage, and honestly, refined storage systems have been done over and over and over again by many people, and they work really well. But how many people have created their own totally individualized automation system? So how about we work on that? And I do still want to have, individual buildings, like way back in our background here, which we can't see here, but our diesel processing plant and everything. If they have a very specific, unique thing and they have multiple crafts, sure, let's make a building for it. However, I'm thinking in the spot right behind us here, this was just a little tiny plan, maybe a doorway would go there, but I'm thinking we have the giant factory, and when I say giant, I mean big. Like, it might go all the way back to the mountain behind us. It might not be that big either, I don't know. But my thought is, why don't we use computer craft, because computer craft is awesome, right? And we do a lot of the things refined storage sort of does. It can monitor how many inventory items are in its system. We can program in individual recipes and have it craft them. Now, the computer itself won't be doing the crafting, but what it'll do is it'll move and dispatch items. It'll say, hey, you don't have enough logs in your system, and then maybe we build a new tree farm to supply our big factory. Or maybe we manually drop it in. But you'll say hey, I want to make crafting tables. And then it would take the logs and it would turn them into planks. And it would do that by moving it to a new chest. That chest would then output the items on a belt, which could then be sawed by a create saw. And then that could go from there to be planks and stored. But then it would know, oh, but now that I have planks, let's move the planks out. And that could go somewhere else that's set up specifically to make crafting tables. And that's what I have envisioned for this section here. Very big, very large. And I kind of want the intro room to be the computer that you interact with. I'm not exactly sure how this is all going to work, but it's just my thought. And if anything comes out of this, we'll at least have a bunch of crafting stations where we could dump in piles of materials and get stuff out, even if we didn't have it auto crafting, quote unquote, everything in between. There are many things we could set up for auto crafts, but one thing that we needed more recently for the lithium were kiln bricks. And in fact, I think I still even need more of these if I want to make more fuel wood heaters, which I do. So this might become one of our first crafts, but that does mean that we probably want to figure out how to craft the blast bricks automatically, the mud bricks automatically, the construction paste, and smoldering lapis. However, right, if we actually want this to be set up with computers, we can get computers from villagers, which that's the easiest way to get them. You just buy them. But if you want to be able to connect the computers to things, you need modems. And these modems are actually a bit of a pain to make. You need aluminum sheet metal, which this part is not too bad, but I would love it if this was automated. You need network cards, which requires copper nuggets, not bad, but the advanced processor needs, well, It needs that whole setup there. It's going to need a pressure chamber. It's going to need those items in the pressure chamber. It's going to need printed circuit board, which is a very big pain to make unless you buy them from mechanics. We could manually supply our system with these, I guess. And then you need wireless transmitters, which of course need more advanced processors. Having those modems automated would allow us to use computer craft so much more because I wouldn't have to spend like an hour or whatever it takes in order to craft all the materials to make those modems anytime I wanted to use it. So that may be our first thing, and then those kiln bricks might be the second thing. And of course, there's all those little tiny steps in between the beginning and the end that will have to be automated. Now then, this might be weird, and I would really love to hear your input on this, right? But if we make this a factory, we have a couple options. And one thing I was thinking, what if we built a building, a room, and this is just like not to scale, and this is just an example sort of, I'm going to call it a illustration of what we could do. We could build a small-ish building. Ish is a variable, right? Small, it's only going to be as large as it really needs to be. So you walk into the building, and your entryway has the big computer system. You might have your storage in here too or something. Then the next building over is connected, but it's built out of a different material, right? And so this has an automation. You know, this is going to have belts and machinery and everything to make one item. And then you have another connecting building over here that has belts and automation and whatever to make another item, and so on. So every time you need to craft something new, and it might not be small individual pieces, it might be anytime you need to craft a large thing, so there's like 10 different automations in that one building, it's made out of a different material. So like you have this organically grown, I'm gonna say, hodgepodge of connected buildings, and you can see like, oh, the dirt, it wouldn't really be dirt, right? It would be like a brick material. Oh, the dacite bricks, that is clearly where we built our modem room, right? And then the one connected to it that's made out of, we'll call it the granite bricks, right? That has our other system that does something else. Would that be neat? Would that be cool? It's like an idea that I've had in my mind to have like this building. It would be large, right? It's going to be our large factory. It would just grow as we go on. If we don't think that's cool, right, the alternate is to do a very large hangar type factory that we would probably differentiate sections at. Like the hangar might be made out of this granite brick or something like that. Maybe some kind of shingles. I don't know. And then we'd, differentiate little sections based on floor markers and maybe railings or something. But that, again, is something I feel like may have been done a lot of times. So we're going to start with this sort of idea. However, in this episode, I don't know that we're going to get many rooms or sub-buildings created or anything like that. It's just an idea, and I'd really, really love to hear your feedback on if you think it's a good idea or not a good idea, because now would be the time to pivot. The lithium processing facility is now producing the refined alloy for Mekanism. And let's take a look. But also, I wanted to show you on the roof, well, there's a couple spiders, but there's something kind of interesting or fun that I think it's fun anyways. We have these little dark shingle roof chimneys up here. They're producing smoke on occasion, and there's a reason for that. When we go back down inside, okay, we've got a fancy door, we've got a fancy pressure plate. The refinery outputs, right? I noticed that they had all these particle effects going on the top, so I figured, why don't we make it look like they're being vented outside, and that is what is exactly happening. I added in this really cool steel catwalk kind of going up over, just so you have a way to get back here if you really needed to, although I don't really foresee us needing to, but it is there just in case. What we do have going on now is our lithium dust gets moved into these spruce drawers. Well, you can see we have 0 in there right now. We've got some aluminum, we've got some copper. Actually, the copper's empty. I just manually put these in here. Eventually, we'll probably maybe have like a drone or something go pick them up and come back and drop them off. I don't know, something like that. It's a thought. But they get sucked out, they go into the induction smelter. When we get 4 total lithium dust, it will produce more of these reinforced alloys. Notice that we just have a battery on top right now. This is the one that I share with the apiary and everything. We'll eventually take this away, and we'll have some sort of power, I think, in the basement that goes to this. Now, let's take a peek at the beginnings of our new building. So I'm going to build it over here, right? As mentioned, it's going to be a large factory. Okay, let's go ahead and take some look at the sides. This is what I have envisioned for the entryway, the lobby, if you will. It's going to have some fancy glass. I'm actually thinking we might put some glass up here too. We want some fancy cool doors here. Maybe they're pressure plate activated. I'm not sure. But we'll come in. We're going to have like a little bit of a water feature, some fancy pillars, and then this is our big computer sort of system that will power everything. At least this is the monitor for the computer system. I'd like it to display all sorts of things on here, such as what we can craft, maybe even an inventory button. Like, I guess before I go too much further, I'm going to say we're going to do something new with this computer that I've never done before. We're going to have clickable touchscreen buttons. And when you click on them, it's going to do things like change the page and all that. The only thing that I'm unsure about with this monitor is, will it be too big? That's a possibility, but we're going to find out. But so this is our building. This right here is mainly for looks, and then we'll be able to come back into the back room. And this, I believe, will be our main storage facility for the computer system. Now, we have a problem that I'm going to show you right now. Down here in the basement of our main storage building, I have some fancy things that I was playing with. Okay, so we have a chest here. It's got 3 items in it. We've got one over here. It's got 16 items in it. And then we have a storage drawer controller on top. Okay, let's take a peek at something. Okay, I changed this up slightly just so I can demonstrate the thing here, right? So we have a chest now here, and we have a drawer here, and then we have a controller with a drawer on top. So when we come here, we have the ability to get item detail of the chest, which is in right. And then you specify the slot. So slot 1 has 16 of those Persimmon travertine blocks. Okay, great. So if we do this for left.get item detail in slot 1, we can see, oh, we have 3 of those same blocks. Here we are, there's 3. So we can do something such as right.push items, okay, and then we're going to say to left. This is the location we're going to push them to, and then from slot number 1, and then let's give it how many items we want. How about 4? Okay, this should work. Not quite. Okay, so the issue here was that we actually had to specify left as the name in strings, so that means quotes, but here we go. We have moved 4 items from right. We've pushed them into left. So if we take a look, we're down to 12. We should be up to 7, which we are. We can see on the top. So that's great. We can even do the same thing. And actually, I'm going to demonstrate a different function. We can do left dot pull items. Okay, and we're going to pull them into. We're going to pull them from right, and we'll say from slot 1. We'll do 2 more, and then sure, 1. Done. So now we have just moved 2 more blocks from here over to here. So we have pull and push functionality. But what about the drawer controller? Now, we have seen in the Cobbleworks, we use a drawer controller just fine to monitor the amount of items we have. Let's go back here and we'll do top dot, and then it's get item detail, and this shouldn't work. No. Top dot get item detail of 1, this is the slot, nil. So that doesn't work either. Interesting, right? But if we do top dot list, aha, now we can see that there is something in there, right? This list provided us a table that tells us there are 10 right here, Persimmon travertines. And there are 10 up there. However, the problem arises that if we want to top dot push items, all right, let's say we're going to push them into right. We want to push from slot 1. This is the problem. Let's say we want to move 2 items, and we'll put them in slot 1 of the box. Okay? It does say 2, but look, nothing actually moved. We still have 12 up there. We still have 8 in here. Oh! We still have 8. This actually should have been 10. I did pull items, not push items. We want push. Push items into right. 0. Nothing moved. Let's try slot 2. Does slot 2 work? Oh! Oh! Slot 2 worked! Slot 2 worked. Okay. I didn't think it did. I had tried a few things and I didn't quite get that. Okay, so what this means is the drawer controller is occupying slot 1. When we did the list, I kind of saw this number 2 and I was curious. Does that actually mean this is slot 2? It may, because this did work. We were able to move. Let's see if we can move all 10. I don't see why we wouldn't. From slot 2, all 10 items out. Nothing left. We have 20 items over here. Oh, okay. This really simplifies things. I thought that we were going to have a modem attached to every single drawer. And that would have been expensive and complicated in order to keep track of all of them. Now, we only need to keep track of the connected drawer controller, and then we can build our internal, memory of all the items that are in there based off of the list call in a very similar way that we do over in the Cobbleworks. So our new building is underway, and we have the computer in place. Now, the computer, of course, it doesn't have any code on it yet. However, right, this is what I'm envisioning. We have a big screen here. We have the access to the computer here if needed. Right, and then around back, we have the drawer controller that it's going to be hooked up to, and then there will also be a modem on the bottom of this computer that's going to be able to connect to basically everything else inside of our factory. This right now, these are framed drawers with dark oak planks, and then we're using gold blocks, so it's a little bit of expensive, honestly, to make this, but I think it looks really cool. The thought here is that this will come out into a hallway. We'll be able to walk down the hallway, and there'll be different rooms, different, buildings, as we mentioned, for different things. Now, this is not complete. Like I said, there's no code on the computer, but this is what I'm envisioning. These Persimmon travertine blocks will actually be modems instead. The computer will touch the modem, and the modem will then allow the computer to move items out of the main storage here and put it into the input. So this is what would happen, right? We would say, okay, let's craft ourselves a wired modem, and let's take a look. We need aluminum sheet metal, right? So this machine makes our aluminum sheet metal. We put aluminum in, and it would, of course, put the correct amount of aluminum in. This would stamp that into sheets. It would come over to here, and I don't think we've used these yet, but these are the mechanical arms, and you can set them up to move stuff in. Okay, now something to note with this recipe. This recipe, it's only got one crafting ingredient, and it has one empty space. The empty space happens to have one of those little filler blocks. But the way that this is set up is you set this as the input, and then you set these each up as outputs, and it will, one by one, put them in there. When you need a filter, however, you have to do things a little differently, which I'll show in a second. Okay, so this makes our aluminum sheet metal, and then it would put it in this deposit chest at the very end. And we have 20 in there right now. The computer would then say, it would check these output chests every, a couple seconds probably, and say, hey, if they have any items in them, pull them out. And what it would do is it would pull them out, and then it would go to deposit it right in the storage drawer, and then it would go somewhere in the system. So then the next thing it needs to do is it would say, okay, what else do I need to craft? And if we look at the wired modem, we see it also needs a machine base. The machine base takes reinforced stone slabs, Invar nuggets, and advanced PCBs. Okay, well, we're going to also craft these advanced PCBs. They take plastic, redstone, and printed circuit boards. So this isn't going to be a full complete system, not to start with, that's for sure. So we are absolutely manually supplying some things. Like, we've manually supplied the aluminum ingots in the first step, and on this step, we're going to manually supply all of these. The redstone, the PCB, well, the printed circuit board, and the plastic. So let's go ahead and put these in. Now, I think this is set up to work. Oh, you know what? I did not hook this one up. Let me hook this one up, and then we'll get it running. Okay, we're now hooked up, so let's see if this all works. Redstone, printed circuit boards, and plastic. We're just going to set this up to do 2 crafts, so that's going to be that there, and then 2 printed circuit boards. Okay, now this is how you do filters. You have to put on brass funnels on the back of the crafters, and then you have to put the items right there as the filter. So we can see right now that the arm has picked up all of the plastic and is putting them in. Now, something that I'm maybe unsure of is, will it pick up... We can actually see right here, the plastic, it took all 8 of them. Did it put 2 in each one of those? Oh. Aha, the craft failed. Now, this is not right at all. It is not respecting our filter. And I don't know why that is. I'm going to have to find that out momentarily. Okay, so I figured out what my problem was here. I actually, when I set this mechanical arm up, we're going to break it. When I set it up, I selected the wrong thing. So when you right-click once, this is setting the inputs, okay? Now we need to select the outputs. And what I actually did was I came over here and I selected these as outputs. That's not what we want. We want the funnels themselves to be the outputs, I believe. Trying to click on them, but I'm not seeing anything. And then, of course, it placed it. Okay, so I figured it out. So all of these brass funnels, the arrows were pointed this way, which means that they're an output. But really, we need those arrows to be pointed towards the crafters. Once they're pointed towards the crafters, we're actually allowed to click them. Look at that. So now we're going to select all the brass funnels as inputs, or sorry, as outputs. These depots as inputs, and then we can place our crafter down, and it should do it. Now, let's see if it respects item limits again. That was one of the things I'm not sure about. We get 8, and then we need 2 of those. It does look like it only picked up half of the redstone, which is a good thing. Aha, this looks like it's gonna work. And so this is another example, right? Our computer would say, put all of the items it needs for however many crafts we have designed, and it would put them in there, and then they'd come out here, and finally our printed circuit boards would end up in here, and the computer would know how many come out of normal crafts and all that kind of stuff. And we're actually going to start the second one, because that was only 1 round of crafting. Continuing on to the next section, it works exactly the same way that everything else did. We put in our inputs here, they will all come out. The brass tunnel, of course, splits the items into their respective depots, and then the arm's going to pick them up and move them in. This process could be sped up, right? If I had a bigger power supply, and I'll show you what my power source is. It's just water wheels down here. You know, the standard. We could certainly get a big wind turbine set up, and that would be faster and let us speed the machines up more, you know, and use less stress. Or, sorry, we would have more stress to use. But anyways, this is the basic design. Now, this is all using Create, and Create is great. However, the problem with Create is it could be a little slow, and it takes up a lot of space. So we might not use Create for everything. I was looking at what our options are for automatic crafting, and one of the things I found is called a sequential fabricator from Thermal Expansion. These are actually fairly cheap to make. I mean, it takes a crafting station, which takes mechanical crafters from Create, the machine frame, which we know how to make, some printed circuit boards, construction, and destruction cores. So we could replace these whole setups with, I think, those sequential fabricators, and we would be golden. The other thing, too, is there is another item from Mekanism, which is called, I think it's Formulaic Assemblacator. Yeah, that's it right there. This also isn't that expensive to make. It uses a lot of the same items we already have to make in order to do these sort of setups. So we could try that as well. The only thing that's really limiting us is we don't have our wireless power, which we are working towards. And then once we get our wireless power, we're going to create an actual power station somewhere. So anyways, looking at our outputs, we got some of the more advanced PCBs. We look at this output. We have some machine bases. The very next step in order to make the wired modem would be to make the network card, because we have the aluminum sheet metal. We have the machine bases. Now, we need the network card. So this would be a whole nother crafting setup. It would be a 2x3 crafter with 4 different items. We would manually supply these ones. The wireless transmitter is something I think we could easily also auto-craft, but we would manually supply all of its ingredients as well. And this is where we come to the wrapping up point of our episode. Man, I am pretty excited for what this factory is going to be. In between episodes, I'm going to start the computer program. I don't know how much work will get done on it. It is going to be a little complex. It's going to have to keep track of the whole inventory, and then we're going to have to I'm going to have to finish that room, right, in order to get our wired modem set up so that I can craft the wired modems so we can actually set the machines up so the computer can control them. As I stated earlier, this is probably not the most efficient, this is not going to be the fastest or anything like that, but it's going to be a fun project using computer craft and doing things with it that I don't really see a lot of other people doing, right? We could, if we just had a power station, we could just put this all in refined storage and we would have no issues. Once we get the item management piece set up here and get the ability to craft those wired modems though, we'll be able to set up all sorts of automation. It's going to be sweet. But anyways, we are now out of time, and there is a wandering trader right there who wants my emeralds. So this is Merc Serene signing off.